Hi, I'm Nafisa Nazir.
And I'm Leah Horick.
And we are Sustainability Ambassadors at Southwestern University. We created this podcast to help make our campus more sustainable.
And our world too.
So tune in every other Friday to hear more about what's happening in sustainability at SU and to learn what you can do to live a more sustainable life.
So many things, guys.
Thanks for listening.
And stay sustainable.
Good morning, Southwestern, and thank you for joining us this morning. Today, we are inviting an exceptional guest, Southwestern's very own president, Laura Trombley. Laura E. Scandera Trombley, PhD, is the 16th president of Southwestern University. She's the first woman to hold the top leadership position at Southwestern. We have invited her not only because she has respectable accomplishments before and during her time at Southwestern, but also because of her unyielding commitment to sustainability.
She's the former president emerita of Pitzer College, in which she is known for her dedication to sustainability and environmental studies. Woo, I'm happy about that, an environmental studies major. She directed the construction of 8 LEED certified mixed-use residential buildings, and now 48% of all, is it Pitzer or Pitzer? Pitzer, all right, Pitzer buildings are LEED certified. She is also a strong advocate for social sustainability. Under her leadership, Pitzer was the first college or university in California to make the SAT optional to increase access for all students, and she also set a new standard for representation, with Pitzer tenure track female faculty more than 50% and faculty of color more than 30%. Additionally, the University of Bridgeport, of which she is the former president, was recently ranked as the 39th most ethnically diverse national university and 119th in the top performers for social mobility.
Thank you for joining us, President Trombley. We are incredibly honored and grateful to have you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, so exciting.
So we have some questions for you. And the first one that I want to ask is, what drove you to become a university president?
It's an interesting way that you phrased that, what drove me. I think it was a combination of different events in my life, because I grew up never seeing a woman president, or for that matter, a president of color. So it wasn't as though I had existing role models, so to speak, that I could see and think that I could perhaps one day be where they are. So when I was an undergraduate, one of my best friends happened to be the son of the university president, and I got to know him very well, an individual that I highly respected. And I saw just how hard he worked and how exhausting his presidency was. And I didn't think of it at all in terms of any relationship to myself. I was just witnessing this. And then when I went to SUNY Potsdam, where I taught and became an administrator, I kept getting asked to chair committees, and first departmental committees and then university-wide committees. And the president asked me if I would be interested in joining his administrative cabinet. And by that point, I'd been teaching for a dozen years or so, and I thought this is a way to perhaps create change in a larger way. And so I agreed to do that. And so I was his special assistant. And so I then was exposed to a very different kind of president. And then when I moved to Coe College in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, as the vice president for academic affairs, the first woman there, I worked for another president and observed his style. And I think the basic rule is, after you've been an academic dean or a vice president for academic affairs, after 4 or 5 years, you then get offers of presidencies. And that was never really an end goal for me. And my son at that time, I think, was 5 years old. And Pitzer approached me, and I was interested in Pitzer. One, liberal arts background, the size of this institution, which is similar to Southwestern's. And also I had the only grandchild, and my parents lived in Southern California. And so this was kind of, the full circle moment for me. And I thought, if I'm ever going to be a president, kind of being in a place that I knew well, I thought this would probably help me. And it was useful for me in terms of understanding the culture and getting a sense of the place.
Wow. So it wasn't really like a goal for you, just because like a happy accident, to quote Bob Ross.
I think it was, yeah, it was kind of, you'll be amazed by how much life is this intersection of events that, at the time may not appear linked, but there is a kind of synchronicity that happens where I was really, in the absence of immediate role models, I was fortunate that at least I came into contact and worked for people who were in that position so that I was able to learn what the job was, which made it, I guess, it created a more possible sense for me that this was something that I could do other than thinking, well, this is so far beyond anything that I've ever known that it's out of reach.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just kind of segueing from that, um, when did you first become passionate about sustainability in higher education?
Well, I think I've been passionate about environmental causes from my time as an undergraduate, and I've always been involved in various ways. And growing up in the 1970s in Southern California, that was, I think, in many ways, where a lot of environmental movements were started. And so I was kind of caught up in all of that. And when it came to higher education, I really would say it was coming to Pitzer College, where we had, again, an environmental studies major. And one of my favorite professors was an environmental studies professor whose office was next door to mine. And so we used to talk a lot. And then we had a couple of opportunities there. First, when Pitzer was first built in the early 60s, it had a tiny endowment, and the early 60s was not a great period of architecture, in my view, for Southern California. And so the college was built very quickly and very inexpensively. So think cinder block, right?
No.
And it was a women's college at the time. It was not co-ed. And they actually, I think, were only in business for about 5 or 6 years before they went co-ed. But all of a sudden, you have these buildings that ostensibly were built for women that then were co-ed buildings, and they didn't have any air conditioning. And Southern California at times gets as hot as it does here.
Wow.
And the architect, oddly enough, that they had hired to build these residence halls also designed prisons. And I'm not making that up. So you can't imagine a less attractive kind
Yeah,
of.
we always made that joke about our dorms, but I guess it's true in some places.
This is the lap of luxury, considering what it was that I walked into. And these buildings had really served their purpose and a couple of decades beyond. And so when I came in, pretty similar to here, the Board of Trustees had just approved a master plan the year before I arrived, which stated that we were going to replace all of our residence halls. And clearly it was needed. I mean, our residence halls were built so that you could hardly run Wi-Fi through them because of the construction. So we then began a conversation about, well, what would we want if we decided that we were going to build sustainable residence halls? And that's when, quite frankly, the students taught me. And the students began talking to me about LEED construction. And that was something that I was not familiar with at the time. And there were two places in Southern California at the time that had LEED construction. And one of them was the Natural Resources Defense Council building in Santa Monica. And we went there for a tour, and it was beautiful. It was great. And then you learned about the building and how healthy the environment was. and also about the savings that they were seeing because of the lower usage for cooling and for heat and in terms of water. And I thought, well, this is very, very attractive. And so we decided that the first, at Pitzer, it was always go big or go home. So for the first 4 buildings we constructed, student residence halls, at that time you could only get gold LEED certification for student residence halls. And we learned a lot in that project because this was very early on, and the construction company that we chose claimed to know a lot about LEED construction. As it turned out, they did not. And this was during a time when it was hard to find recycled carpeting. And now, of course, you're like, well, what kind would you like? It's very easy. But then it was, can we even find any? And so it was a great masterclass on sustainable building. And for the next round, for the next 4, at that time, the standards had changed and we were able to build platinum LEED rated buildings. And we became kind of this source for anyone in the area who was thinking of building LEED. They would come to the college just to see what we had done. And we also experienced the kinds of savings on energy and on water. And then at the same time, what emerged was, again, the kind of planting principle in the 60s was just stick stuff in the ground and hope that it spreads and just covers all the dirt. And so not terribly attractive, but
how we ended up with a bunch of Bradford pears here.
Well, we wound up with ivy everywhere. Ivy was everywhere, which is also a great breeding ground for vermin because you can hide in ivy. And so once again, students came to me and they were asking, they started with the lawn that was kind of right in front of the president's office. And they asked, well, what would you think if we ripped up the lawn and planted a garden of native plantings, cactus and drought tolerant plants? And I said, in all the time I've been here, I've never seen anyone actually step on the grass, sit on the grass, have anything to do with the grass. So as far as I'm concerned, rip it out. And it was a great project for them. And they were working with a faculty member because where we were located in Claremont, you actually had to, for any changes to the exterior, you had to go to the city council and have them approve your plan. And so students learned what it was like to work with the city council to create a plan that would be acceptable to them. And then they all created the garden working with faculty. And so that was very successful. And then that began to spread across campus. And what was once, I think truly, we had the title for the ugliest landscaping ever, now has become an arboretum. And people come from all over the Southwest to look at the cactus collection that we have. And it's really very cool.
That is awesome. It's so reminiscent too of how Southwestern got its energy contract to become 100% renewable electricity. With students lobbying faculty and then going to the city, figuring it out. That's so awesome.
Yeah, the students as teachers, I have gained so much from that experience. And as I walk around Southwestern, I'm always looking at lawns. Like, so has anybody ever walked on that piece over there? Or should we, think about something?
I heard through the grapevine that you're interested in getting everything de-launified and turned into native plants. And I'm totally on board. Lawns are evil.
You say one thing to one person, and the fact is that this is a place of great natural, and I emphasize natural beauty. And so, bringing part of that on campus and celebrating that and actually making that one of, I think, the really attractive aspects of the institution and including educational material. So why do we have this kind of plant on campus? And how does that perhaps relate to our heritage and indigenous plants? I think all of that would be really interesting.
Yes, totally. So I'm president of the garden club, and we try to do native landscaping as much as possible because it reduces our water use, and native plants are way easier to grow than ones that are not native.
Yes, they survive the summers, I think, a little bit better.
Just a bit. Oh man.
So, kind of going off of like, sustainability in general, everybody has like a certain like definition that they would give for sustainability. So we're wondering, what does sustainability mean to you?
Well, you've already said it, that it means a lot of different things to different individuals. I've always thought about sustainability in terms of the conversation we've been having is, yes, most immediately, trying to reduce your consumption and be as planet friendly as possible. So that means not just reducing water, but it's also reducing waste, it's reducing paper, it's reducing emissions and carbons and all of that. That's all, I think, well within a kind of environmental lens of looking at it. But then you also have to look at sustainability in terms of organizations and people. So how can we think about sustainability in those terms? Also in social movements, sustainability. How then do we think about succession for different kinds of movements? And in order for something to continue and to grow, how do we sustain the future growth of that place? So I think you can really, it has a lot of facets and you can really look at it in different ways.
Yeah, definitely. I think, my working idea is just something that can keep going without harming something else significantly. Like
Yeah, I mean, sustainability now has been co-opted, of course,
oh yeah.
and you will see, once Walmart started to talk about sustainability, I thought this is very interesting. It's now become marketing, right? It's
Mhm.
marketing material. Environmentally friendly, we're sustainable, and when you really start looking through some of this, you realize that it's a marketing hook because they're trying to appeal to a certain cross section of consumers. And I think that there is a kind of I think you need to think critically about that. Is this actually doing what it is claiming to do? I was in the market the other day, and I always buy. I like sparkling water. For me, that's like a wild and crazy evening. Sparkling water and watching a documentary. And I was looking at the water, and they were claiming that it was environmentally friendly and gluten free. And I said, okay, well, what water is? And I thought it's just a marketing tag, and that's what you have to be aware of, right?
Yeah, the gluten-free stuff, man. I could go on a tangent about that. So kind of in line with like your work at Pitzer and Co. When you were building the residence halls and like similar initiatives, had you communicate that commitment to sustainability to people who may have been skeptical about especially the cost or the effectiveness or even the necessity of those efforts?
I think, again, there was a lot that people brought. So first, is this just kind of is it just a fashionable thing, or is it a real thing? And so, because it was so early, I think there was more of a proof of concept that had to be made. That this wasn't just kind of the latest thing, that this actually was substantive. And I think that bridge has been crossed because there are so many places now and so many LEED buildings, and there's so much sustainable building that has become far more the norm than it was, say, 10 years ago when people were asking me, so will it be mud walls and a thatched roof? And I was saying, no, you don't quite understand what we're talking about when we're talking about sustainable construction. And then at the time, there was a sense that it would be much, much more expensive to build this kind of construction. And, frankly, in my view, it's all about the team that you have and how well you can control costs and how much and the kind of direction that your construction project manager is getting. And so at the end of our first run of 4 residence halls, I think the total amount that we spent in addition to, let's say, so to speak, traditional construction was about 5%. but we made that back through the energy savings in less than a year.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, I think in the end, I'll put it in terms of there's passion and then there are facts. And I think you need to have both, because in order to convince people sometimes that this is the right thing to do, you absolutely need to have passion. But ultimately, when you're asking people to invest, and I had to do the fundraising for all the residence halls, people want to see, well, what's the data? What kind of case can you make for this? And we were able to do it at that time when there wasn't a lot that was actually out there for us to use, but we grabbed all the data we could. It's much easier to do so today.
Yeah. That's super awesome.
And just like jumping from obviously your amazing sustainability efforts at the universities that you've been at, we're kind of wondering what vision do you have for Southwestern in regards to sustainability? Are there any goals or objectives you foresee being implemented during your presidency?
Oh, I think all day long, right? I mean, it's a constancy. So, as I walk campus, I'm looking at, well, what kind of plantings do we have? Do we have conservation nozzles on our fountains? Where you can actually save a lot of water and the fountain will actually be much higher than what you currently have. When you talk about going more into a digital campus rather than an analog or paper-driven campus.
Right.
For the new mixed-use residence hall that we're going to start programming next year, of course in my view, of course it would be a sustainably built construction. And, science buildings are among the hardest to do. And we've already accomplished that. Residence halls at this point, they've become, in my view, kind of the normal. Right. That's not exceptional anymore. So many places are doing them.
Yeah.
But it's kind of looking at our surroundings with a new eye and trying to envision, well, what could it look like that, frankly, we talk a lot about how the university is transformational, right? And you are to take your transformational education and use that to transform the world, your society, your family, your region. And I think in many ways, we should practice that with our facilities. So we should be a role model for the area around us. How can you create a beautiful, safe, environmentally friendly, and sustainable campus and let that be an example for others? And then as students graduate and they lead their lives and they start thinking about, well, what kind of building would I want to raise my family in or that I want to live in? You have this in your background and you know that this is possible. That's, I think, how you create positive change.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Are we getting a new residence hall?
Oh, yeah. FYI, yes. But you won't be. You're going to go back and be bitter at homecoming.
Oh, no.
They never had this when I was a student here. But it's actually what the trustees just approved. We just had the last board meeting of the year 2 weeks ago, and they unanimously approved the tactical plan that we've been working on all year. And one of the components of that tactical plan is a new mixed-use residence hall for first-year students that would be built on the footprint of the President's House and those 2 other buildings on that side of campus.
Oh, okay.
So in effect, we would be creating a first-year pod, right? So we'd have all the first-year students together, and we would be tearing down one of the oldest residence halls that's in that same location that has been slated to come down. And in its place, we're thinking of, and we'll be working with students on this, but I think at first blush, we're thinking of having an outdoor pool and perhaps some outdoor painting areas, art making areas, those kinds of things. So you have both recreational and creative facilities along with a new residence hall. And by mixed use, one of the things that we've been considering is moving financial aid, admissions, and the bookstore in the bottom floor. So that kind of students would have, one stop. You could come and get a lot of things done instead of running around to different areas on campus. And the bookstore, I will just say, is not in the best location right now.
Yeah, it's a little bit out of the way. That's awesome. I like that that it'll be built on existing footprints. I was a little bit worried. I was like, oh no, they're gonna build on my favorite like wandering spaces back in the corner of campus.
Yeah, it's already built, so it's just going and taking these older buildings and then replacing them with something that is far more energy friendly.
Awesome. Well, we are getting close to our time limit, but I did want to ask you one thing, not quite related to Southwestern, but I know that you were the president of a botanical garden. And I just
Yeah.
wanted to ask what that was like, because that sounds so freaking cool.
It was super cool. I mean, it was a weird place, I'll say, because it had a very odd legacy aspect to it. So when you had the railroads constructed, there were 4 major investors in the Continental Railroad. And one of them, his last name was Huntington. And so he passed away, and his stepson inherited most of his fortune. And this is the Gilded Age. It was an enormous fortune. And so the stepson decided to resettle in San Marino in Southern California. And he really was the driver to create suburbia in Southern California. So he built all of these trolley lines, and wherever he would build a new trolley line, he also owned the land. And so he would start building homes there. But the wealthy in those days in Southern California, because it's so easy to grow things in Southern California, the wealthy had what many people have termed fantasy gardens. And so you would have people build like a Japanese garden or a Bavarian garden or their own version of Versailles, because they had the wealth to do that. And so what he decided to do was build gardens like the Australian garden, the Chinese garden, the Japanese garden, because he had more money than anybody else. And so he was going to, show power through plants. And
That's
so
great.
people come to walk the grounds because it's very trippy and it's, beautiful. And the grounds are maintained truly by volunteers. And because gardening is America's #1 hobby. So we would have just hundreds of people coming, generations, who had actually tended to the gardens there. And in addition, because he had such fabulous wealth, he was a collector of books and manuscripts. And so one of the world's finest collections is also at the Huntington that only a very few scholars get to see every year.
Wow, I just love botanical gardens so much.
Yeah, it was great. I used to get up in the morning. I lived on a campus there, and so I would get up in the morning and I would jog through all the different gardens.
That's so cool. I remember when I was studying abroad in Australia, I went to the botanic garden in every city that I went to, and it was such a cool experience.
Yeah, it is. It's great, and we have the ability to do that here.
That'd be amazing. Oh my gosh, if I come back to homecoming in like 10 years and there's a botanic garden, I'm gonna be so happy. Oh man.
Well, I think it's a great thing to do. It's beautiful. It's the right thing to do. It's a way for us to embrace our history, and it is environmentally sustainable. And also, I would love to see more people from the community coming here and being part of us and maintaining the gardens that we have here and working with us. And I found that students, it's a really relaxing, rewarding thing to do, to bring things to life and to take care of them and enjoy their natural beauty.
Oh yeah, totally preaching to the choir here.
Not that I'm totally against lawns. Lawns have their place.
Oh man. All right, well, I think that's about all we've got for today. But thank you so much for coming on. This has been so fun. And
thank you. It was a delight.
Yes. All right. Well, we don't want to keep you too long, but it's so nice to meet you.
Yeah, and I will see you at commencement.
Yes.
Awesome.
So soon.
All right, take care. Have a great rest of the year.
All right, thank
too.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, so that was our interview with Dr. Trombley, who is super cool, and I'm super happy that she's our new president because she has some great ideas for Southwestern. And here are just a few news items. So it's the ending days of Earth Month. Today we have one event left, a tree planting for National Arbor Day. So after this episode is released, make sure to go out to the mall between Reuter and McCombs, and facilities will be hosting a campus-wide planting of 2 live oak trees. They'll have already started by the time this episode is released, but if you hurry, you can probably get out there.
Yeah.
Or at least just go visit them. You know, trees get lonely too. But yeah, bring some water. We're not going to be like moving big things, mostly just sitting back and enjoying.
And since Leah, this is your very last episode with me.
It's so sad.
I know, yeah. So as you all know, this is the last episode of our semester, and this is also my co-host Leah's last episode, period. I mean, unless you want to co-host next year, you know, I'm still open to that, but I imagine you'll kind of be busy.
I'm probably going to be busy with my
Yeah.
just being a real adult.
Yeah. But I want to take the last few moments of this episode to give my warmest gratitude to her and her amazing contributions to sound sustainability over the past year. So for the first semester, as you all know, I was running this all by myself. It was quite time consuming. I mean, at least I got hours, but you know, and many people suggested that I needed a co-host. And so when I first announced the idea that I would need one, you know, I didn't think I would find anyone, but I was so glad because like immediately afterwards, like you agreed to it.
Yes.
And I was like so flattered because like I was like this little freshman with like this, you know, college podcast that I barely started. And like you were, you know, the co-president of Seek, and you had done so many things. And
Hey,
like,
you're the co-president of Seek now.
but yeah, I know. So, but yeah, I was just so flattered and honored to have you as my co-host.
Oh.
And you know, you joined and you were just amazing. You helped the podcast in a lot of ways, like from making it, you know, making the intro cleaner to helping suggest more ideas and updating the logo and your awesome, beautiful Canva graphics.
Thank you.
And just, you know, just overall, just a very supportive and great person to work with, honestly. And honestly, like if you need anybody to write you like a recommendation in the future, like I've got you covered.
Awesome.
Yeah, so needless to say, I'm gonna miss you a lot, and I'll definitely be grateful for you as a co-host, a fellow sustainability ambassador, and as a friend. And I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors, and I just hope that I find a co-host who is even half as great as you. So once again, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been really fun. I enjoyed doing this podcast. I wish I could have done it longer. But yeah, I hope you keep it going, and I hope that you find someone who's excited to be co-host.
Yes.
It's just a fun thing to do. We get to talk to so many cool people. Who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe I'll make my own podcast someday.
Well,
I don't know. I'll call it Sustainable Irrigation with Leah.
Thank you, everybody. As always, thanks for tuning in and giving us your feedback. And thank you to all of our guest speakers, too. And good luck on finals. Have a great summer, and we will see you in the fall.